right, here we go. Today we have former Hells Angels leader Charles PeeWee Goldsmith. Welcome to VladTV.
Thank you.
Well, you have a very interesting story, and I want to start in the very beginning. So, you were raised by your mom and your three sisters.
Right.
And your biological dad wasn't around.
No, he wasn't around from the very beginning. He caught a beef or something, and he drove somebody to a bar, I guess, and they ran inside to rob it or whatever it was, and he got sent to prison. So when I was born, he had to do 2 years. And then when he got out, I think he was around for about 3 years, and then by the time I was 5, they were divorced and it was over.
Okay, so did you ever actually meet him?
Yeah, I've met him. I seen him. Well, I remember when I was a little kid, and then I think I seen him maybe once when I was like 13 or 12 years old, and then I seen him probably when I was in my 20s a couple times, and then I even went up. He's dead now, but I went up hunting with him one time. He invited me to go deer hunting with him, and I'm thinking, hey, he's a fella where you should even be in the woods, And then I heard him shoot, and I got out of my deer stand. I walked over and I said, "Did you get one?" And he said, "I shot a wolf, man. These damn wolves are chasing the deer away." And I'm like, "A wolf, federally protected." I told him, "I'm out of here," because we were in the national forest.
Okay. So, essentially, your dad wasn't around, so you had a stepdad.
Right.
Who was abusive.
Very abusive.
What was the worst thing he did?
Probably punched me when he punched me in the face, broke my nose, knocked me out.
Damn.
I was probably in 4th grade.
Wow.
And he told me a little, it's kind of funny because it was like the first time that show, the Grinch Who Stole Christmas, that was the premiere of it. So that's how far back this goes. And I was in 4th grade. And I was sitting there going to watch it, and he said, "Hey, get up, take the garbage out, and put the dishes away." And I said, "Well, can I do it after the show?" He goes, "No, do it now." When I got up, and I was walking as a kid, I kind of like dragged my foot and kind of did like a little foot stomp on the ground, and he spun me around, and pow, just drilled me, knocked me out. When I came to, he was spanking me.
Huh.
So, yeah, he thought he was a real tough guy, giving me beatings with belts, pieces of wood, you name it.
What was your mom doing while she was experiencing all this?
Well, my mom was working like 3rd shift, so she'd be sleeping a lot of the times. But, and she knew, she's the one that took me to the hospital when he punched me in the face and broke my nose. And, she said, "Oh, just say that you fell down the stairs." But back then, that child abuse thing wasn't as big as it is today, Today, they would have looked into it a lot more. But, I was just thinking to myself, and I was starting to write that in my book when I first started it. And what do you call it? Like a ghostwriter guy that looked at it, and he told me, you might want to take this stuff out. And then my mom was starting to read it, and she says, "You going to put this in there? It's going to make me look like a bad mom, Well, hey, you did let him get away with a lot of shit.
The shoe fits.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're growing up in Milwaukee.
Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Okay. And you get kicked out of Catholic school.
Well, I didn't get kicked out. I graduated in 8th grade. I started off in kindergarten, in 1st grade at a place called St. Mary's Czestochowa. It was like a real old Catholic school there. I started there, and that was way back. I can tell you, it was, the easiest part to remember is when I walked in to the room and sat down, and the nun put the TV on, and we're all sitting on the floor watching the assassination of President Kennedy. So that would be, 1963? And then I got in a fight with a boy out on the playground, and he pushed me down, and I got up and I drilled him one. And they said that they were totally flabbergasted that I struck another boy with my fist. So they threw me out. And then I went to regular public schools until 7th and 8th grade. I went to St. Matthew's. And then when I got out of there, then they sent me back to the public schools again. And then I started fighting again with all these guys. And my mom thought, the only way he was going to straighten me out was send me to a military academy. And
Right. St. John's Military Academy.
right.
Okay. So then you go through that. And is that where you finished off your high school?
No, I went there for 9th grade. And believe it or not, back then it was like $5,000 a semester, Mm-hmm. And we weren't rolling in the dough. So my mom goes, well, I can't afford to send you back to which I was like, thank God. So I went to our neighborhood high school which was South Division High School. It was right where we lived. And, back in that day, that's when the kids all went to the schools that they grew up in the neighborhood with. Then the busing started way later after that. But I like South. It was the old South. It had a lot of history. And it was really cool because, there was pictures hanging on the wall from state champ basketball players from the 20s all the way up. And it was pretty cool.
Okay, so you're going to high school, and you're captain of the football team. You also wrestled. You became a state champion, actually, in wrestling.
Right.
And you were heavily recruited, but I guess you had bad grades?
Yeah, my grade, you had to carry, to get a scholarship in college, you have to have a 2.5 average. I had a 2.2. So they told me I had to go to a junior college for the first year to get my grade point up. And they sent me to a school called Richland Center. It's about 50 miles outside of Madison. And then what happens when you get your grade point up, they just transfer you over, into University of Wisconsin.
Right, but you ended up getting into an accident. You tore your ligament.
Well, I tore my ligament at the University of Wisconsin.
Ah, okay.
We were practicing. I was already there, and we were running laps in the gym, and it was a bad snowstorm, so a local high school came to work out with us. And they were horse playing behind me, and this guy kicked this guy's legs out. He's 300 pounds. He fell in the back of my leg when I was running, tore the ligament right out of the bone.
Wow.
Ended me. And I was undefeated then, too.
So that was the end of your sports career?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. And, you ended up having a baby while still in high school?
I had my daughter, Brenda, my senior year in high school.
Right.
And she, at this time, was probably about 3 years old when I was in the college wrestling.
Right. And then at 24, you married
Dale,
your first wife.
Right.
You had a son also.
Right.
So now you got 2 kids. You're in your early 20s. And that's when you became a greaser, the way you described it?
Yeah. When I got out of all the sports, being pretty much a jock.
Yeah.
And all my friends that were around me were all greasers, so.
What is a greaser? Because when I think greaser, I think of the movie Grease. And those cruel guys.
It's pretty much just like that, they got a couple of the outsiders,
Yeah,
and
right. Great movie, by the way.
The greatest line is when the guy says, what are you guys, some kind of heroes? When they say the kids in the church, he goes, we're greasers, man. But, I knew all the greaser guys, and I started hanging out with them guys, and it was a lot of fun. It was like a real lifestyle, it wasn't just something like you were pretending to be. We comb our hair back, had the perfect pompadours, all this hairspray. It wasn't Grease, but it was pretty much like the movie you said, Grease.
Okay. And is that when you started doing crimes?
Yeah, basically, those guys, some of the guys in that group, they were just like, hey, if there was something they wanted, they took it,
Okay. And you said some of these theft jobs were like $250,000, pieces of merchandise.
Right.
So what were you guys stealing? What were the big ticket items during that time?
Like furniture stores or something like that. We'd go in there, and because I know how to drive truck, we'd load up the truck right there at the building, inside the building, load it, whole semi up, and I'd drive it out,
An entire truck full of furniture, and nobody noticed. This is before cameras were everywhere and everything.
Right.
Okay, how would you unload all that furniture?
We had this like warehouse, and we just pull up there, and we had a couple of guys, and we're all taking it off. Like back then, is when they first came out with the refrigerator, you know, where you push the ice and the water coming out of it. That was brand new. I mean, a brand new thing. So they were like $3,000-$4,000 for those refrigerators back then. They were big money because they were the thing to have, you know. We had about 8 of them.
Okay. And you actually ended up getting arrested and charged with criminal damage to property. So were you caught for actually stealing or for something else?
It was actually for concealing stolen property. They came to the house and found a bunch of the stuff in the garage.
Okay. And then in 83, you caught your first felony and you were on probation. So you just got probation for that first one, right?
No, that was the big one. I got caught and I got, what was it? Probation and like a $500 fine. And that was about it. Actually, for like, they didn't catch us for the furniture. They caught us like for other little or smaller jobs.
Okay.
That's why I didn't want to go on and listen all of them, you know?
Yeah, that's fine. But when you caught the felony, was it a felony for that or something else?
It was for that, concealing stolen property.
Okay, but you didn't get any prison time for that?
No.
Okay. So you end up getting caught, but you're still hanging out with the greasers.
Yep.
And a lot of them start getting motorcycles.
Right. Like from my early 20s to my late 20s, I started seeing the guys buying bikes and riding. And I'm like, what the hell? And I got to be honest, I didn't even know how to ride a bike.
Okay. So you end up getting your first bike, and it was a Harley?
Right, a 1980 lowrider. It was the old AMF when Harley, remember, was owned by AMF for a while.
Yeah.
I bought an 80 lowrider, and my wife worked at General Electric, you know, Hot Point. And they were building dishwashers, and she got a loan through her credit union, and she just told me, just promise me one thing. You won't join any motorcycle gangs. I said, okay.
Okay. So when you got your first bike, were you secretly thinking I'm going to join a motorcycle gang or?
No, not really. I just was riding with a couple of the greaser guys that I knew, and then one of them got killed, and then the other guy got hit and broke his leg real bad. And then I started hanging around with these other guys that were called the Sinners Motorcycle Club, and I got involved with them, and then I ended up joining them, and a year later becoming a president.
Right. You started hanging out with Mel Larson, a.k.a. Pappy.
Right. Exactly. He was my mentor.
Right. And the Sinners, they're around since the 60s. But it was a small group of guys. It was like 10 people.
Pappy said they brought him back, you know, when they got back from Vietnam, they formed this group.
Okay. And what exactly was the relationship between the Sinners and the Outlaws? Because the Outlaws were a big...
They were the big dominant, which they still are there, you know. They're a big 1% club there. And naturally, we always had have meetings with them or sit-downs and talks and all that stuff, you know. It was like the big guy with the thumb down on you all the time, you know.
Okay. Was the Sinners a 1% gang or no?
No, not at all.
They're just a regular
little motorcycle club.
And for those that don't know, 1% means the 1% of motorcycle gangs that are actual criminal organizations. Is that true?
Well, yeah, it stood for like they said, 99% of the 99% of the bikers were good, law-abiding citizens. 1% were the bad ones, you know.
Yeah,
that's how they picked up that lingo.
Okay, so you become the president of the Sinners in 1986. Right. You're around 30 years old, and you start to grow the membership in there. You went from 10 to 25 members.
Right.
Now, at this point, were the Sinners just a regular, law-abiding group of guys, or were they getting into more of the criminal stuff?
No, they were pretty much, those guys all had jobs, you know what I mean? It was nothing like, no running dope or guns or any of that kind of crap. You know, we just got together on weekends, and we had a charter in LaPorte, Indiana, and another one in Holland, Michigan. So we would go to them, or they would come to us. And it's only 3 states that we were in, so.
Well, at one point, though, you got into a fight with 3 of the Outlaws.
Right. They came over to our clubhouse to talk, and we went upstairs to a little meeting room we had. So it was just, me and them. And when we got up there, he says, yeah, I want to talk to you. And I sat down in a chair, and he took his helmet off, which I didn't understand because there wasn't a helmet law there, you know. He had a helmet on, and it was unusual for me. But when he took it off, he cracked me across the face with it, and I jumped up, and boom, it was on, you know. And I was rolling around with 3 of them, but actually 4 of them were up there. 3 I fought with, and the 4th one, he would just like kind of stand by the staircase, you know, holding onto a pistol.
Okay, and you got stabbed in the back with a screwdriver.
Yeah, I saw it in his hand. He had a small screwdriver, and when I got up, I could feel the pinch in the back right here, you know. It was small enough that it didn't go in my lung or anything, thank God.
Okay. How bad was the injury?
It was just a little puncture hole, like, you know.
Okay.
Like I got bit by a dog a couple of weeks ago, you know, just a little puncture hole.
Oh, okay. And I remember you said in your book that after that fight, I guess, well, during that fight, they grabbed your hair?
Right. I had real long hair with a long ponytail, like 29-inch long ponytail in the back. And I really didn't have any physical markings on my face, but insides of my cheeks were bruised because one of the guys had a pair of sap gloves on, you know, with the sand in them, boom, boom. So it was doing damage, hitting my teeth. So the inside of my mouth hurt. That was about it. And yeah, they were controlling me by the hair, you know, grabbing the ponytail, and you know the old story. Your body goes where your head goes.
Yeah. So you shaved your head after that because
right. I shaved it. Yeah, I shaved
like
the balls.
The next fight I'm getting into, this is not going to happen.
Which was sad because when I went to grow it back, it did want to come back.
Okay. So at that point, was there sort of beef between you and the Outlaws in a way, or?
Yeah, there was the hard feelings. More or less, they were telling me I better start doing what they tell me to, and we better start listening, or they're going to take me out and put somebody in my spot. I just went downstairs after they left. People looked at them when they were walking out. They could see that something went wrong, you know, and they were like, what's going on? And I said, hey, we better make up our minds right now what we're going to do. You know, if you guys are going to put up with this shit, I'm not going to put up with it. So I'm going to do whatever I have to do. But I says, how many more people are here with me? I think got a whole group, maybe 6 guys said, I'm with you. And the rest all laid down their stuff and quit.
Okay. So there was a situation around this time where one of the members of the Sinners was in state prison with a guy who had a Hell's Angels tattoo.
Right.
Tell me this.
Guy's name was Kickstand, and he was in prison. He said, hey, you know this guy? Now, I didn't know a lot of the Angels. You know, I didn't know a lot of them. I really didn't. As I said, I saw him in Humboldt Park, drag racing and stuff, but I never talked to Pat Matter. He was the president. I talked to Ralph, one of the members, Sergeant of Arms, and we basically just, you know, introduced ourselves to each other. But at that time, Kickstand sent me the pictures, and this guy had a big Hell's Angel tattoo on his arm, and he says, oh, I know this guy, I know that guy. But see, all these guys he said he knew, these are all guys you could read in books, and you know their names, and they're all dead, and they're from a long time ago. So I said, let me find out and let me ask. So I called Minneapolis Custom Cycles because I knew Pat owned it. And guy answered, and I said, can I talk to Pat? And he says, yeah. And he puts me on, he goes, yeah, this is Pat. Who am I speaking to? I said, this is PeeWee, you know, I'm in a club called Sinners Motorcycle Club. And I says, hey, we got a guy in prison, and he's saying this guy, and I said the guy's name, I can't remember it now. And I said, he's one of you guys, and I'm wondering what he's doing down here. And he goes, what's his name? And I gave him his name, and Pat did all this checking. He called me back. He said, the guy's BS. He's not one of us. And I said, oh, okay. So then I just told Kickstand, I said, take care of it, you know, and they gave him the old hot spoons, you know, and took it off his arm.
They burned the tattoo.
Yeah, they burned it off his arm, yeah.
Wow. Okay, and that kind of started your relationship with the Hells Angels?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so now you know the Hells Angels, and I guess you knew a guy named Ralph.
Right.
From the Hells Angels. And he said that if you want to join the club, you'd have to move to Minnesota.
Yeah.
Now you have a wife, 2 kids.
Good job.
Good job. You're a Teamster, right?
Right.
And now they're telling you got to move to Minnesota to join this 1% motorcycle gang.
Right.
What was the conversation with your wife like, trying to explain this?
Well, I think she was up for the move. Hot Points sold out. They're part of that factory to something in Korea or something like that. They moved the dishwashers to. So she actually lost her job. She got laid off. And she was collecting unemployment. And I had a good job, and I just told her, I said, hey, I want to go up there. I want to do this. And I think the only thing she really said to me was, you sure about this? You really going to make this big move? Because if you do and you end up going to prison, I swear to God, I'll divorce you. I'll leave. I said, I'm not going to prison, And it was hell because I was traveling, from Milwaukee up to Minnesota, like on the weekends, to set up parties and do whatever I had to do. Because they didn't know me. They said they got to get to know me. So I did that for 3 years, 6 hours up, 6 hours back. And I had to get back Sunday night to go to work Monday morning.
Okay, so you become a prospect for the Hells Angels.
Right, in 1994.
Right.
May 4th.
Now, the concept of a prospect means that you get to be around these guys and they're considering you as a full member.
Right, you're a prospective member. That's what it means. Yeah.
And you're essentially at the bottom of the totem pole in this organization at that point.
Right. The only guy lower than me is a hang-around. The hang-around, then the prospect, and then you get the members.
Now, Hells Angels have certain rules. You can't steal or deal with stolen bikes.
Well, that was Pat's. Yeah, I've never really seen any of those guys do that anyway, but I mean, we were more or less a couple of the sinner guys, we were doing it as sinners, I mean, grabbing some bikes.
Yeah.
But as I think when I got hooked up with the Angels and became a prospect, because Pat owned a motorcycle shop, he didn't want any heat to him. So he told us, don't deal with any, don't steal any bikes, don't do any shit. And I was good with that anyway,
Right, you can't deal drugs.
Well, they were dealing drugs.
But that was one of the Hells Angels rules, though, wasn't it? Not really?
Not really.
Not really, okay. You can't disrespect anyone's wife or girlfriend.
Right, that's true.
Unless the member said it's okay.
Yeah, there wasn't many members saying it was okay. Yeah.
And you can't let anyone disrespect a member or a prospect. And if they did, then you'd have to fight them.
Right.
And once the other guy said, I've had enough, you had to stop, shake hands, help them up.
Very true.
And
true.
The fight is over. And you ended up beating up 3 members and 2 prospects.
Right.
This was during the prospect time?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
One of the guys sucker punched me in the face, and I got into it with him. And when I got him to the ground, and I was just ready to start pounding his face, and they all jumped on me, and not jumping on me like, to beat me up. They grabbed me and they were holding on to me, and I could hear them laughing and stuff, and they're like, okay, man, we just wanted to see, we mud checked you just to see if you'd fight. Well, why wouldn't I fight? You sucker punch me in the face,
Right. And you're a big guy. How tall are you?
6'8".
6'8".
Yeah.
And how big were you, like pound-wise during that time?
I was like 450 at that
450,
time.
6'8", 450. Were you like the biggest guy there?
No, there was like, I was one of the, there was a couple other guys as tall as me and big as me, but there were some guys in there that were like way heavier than me, like, 600 pounds, and there's some big heavy set guys in there.
Okay. Now, you're already part of the Sinners, but once you started riding with the Hells Angels, it was a very different riding style.
Oh, yeah.
They were like
Day
really
and night.
up on each other.
Day and
really
night,
close. Why was that?
I'm laughing because you're like the 100th person to ask me, and I don't have an answer for it. I don't know why we rode like that, because, if one of the guys in front of you went down or a tire blows up, we were all going down.
Right.
And that's just the way they rode. And I never understood it, but it was like the thing we had to do. Right. And I had a full bagger when I first came around. They're like, get rid of it, because I couldn't keep up with them. FXRs was their bike of choice,
Right, and you would see people get badly hurt or even killed.
Oh, yeah, many times I did. Many times. Break their necks and prospects that broke. I remember this kid from Cleveland he went off the side of a cliff and he fell like 40 feet. It was on the ledge. If he would have fell again, he would have been another 80. He would have been dead. Yeah. And they airlifted him out of there. Next time I saw him, he had the neck brace with the bolts in his head, and he couldn't move. And I looked at him and I said, "You okay?" And he said, "I'm done, man. I'm done."
Well, a lot of the Hells Angels, you said, during that time were all about meth.
Yeah, that seemed to be the drug of choice.
Right. And at one point, Pat, the president, gave you a can of Coke.
Yeah.
And it had meth in it.
Right. On the way to Sturgis. No. Because I wouldn't do it.
Okay. Was that... So now you're on, taking meth not unknowingly. Was that a drug that you were like, no, I'm good with, I don't want it anymore? Or did you actually go through a phase where you were taking meth yourself? I
was taking it after that. Well, when we hit the road, because I was falling asleep in the back of the pack, and when that stuff kicked in, man, I was just like, couldn't get there fast enough or, anything fast enough. I was up for like 3 days. And then after that, I would use it as a tool. Like when we would get someplace, we'd ride all day, 10 hours, and we get to the hotel, and then they turn to me and say, "Hey, PeeWee, you watched the bikes for the first 4 hours. We're leaving at 7 a.m. So, if we're there and I got the first 4 hours, I got to stay up till 2 in the morning and lay down, hope you get a couple hours of sleep." A couple of the members, from Massachusetts, they had a room. They let me come in there and crash on the floor for a couple hours. But to watch those bikes, and you were like dead tired. You just boop, do a little bump, bang, gets you spinning again. And most of the time you couldn't close your eyes. It was like impossible.
During this time while you were prospecting, what do you think was the most serious situation you got into?
Trying to think here. There was some like serious, like when the bomb went off and on Grand Avenue, when the Hells Henchmen were, when the Hells Henchmen were, they were trying to become Hells Angels, and the Outlaws went there and they put a bomb on in front of the clubhouse, and it was a major bomb. It destroyed houses for like 5 blocks, moved the building. It was great. It was the 3rd largest bomb in the United States. I seen Oklahoma was 1. Mm-hmm. I think the World Trade Center was 2 at that time, and the Chicago one was 3.
Okay, so it was Hell's Henchmen.
Right, they were trying to become, the same time they were prospecting, the same time I was.
Okay, so who set the bomb?
The Outlaws. They didn't want them in Chicago.
Oh, the Outlaws put a bomb in front of the Hell's Henchmen clubhouse?
Right.
And blew up the building.
Well, the building, it actually moved the building off the foundation.
Damn.
Blew the door out and blew the windows out, blew like a 5-foot hole in the sidewalk where the car was.
Okay. Well, because from what I understand, the main enemy of the Hells Angels is the Mongols.
Well, on the West Coast.
Ah.
And in the Midwest and East is the Outlaws. It's crazy. It's like right down the middle.
Okay, numbers-wise, how big were the Outlaws compared to the Hells Angels in that area?
In the Midwest,
yeah.
I would say that there was probably more Outlaws.
Aha.
Yeah.
Okay. What happened after the bomb went off? Was there a federal investigation? Were the guys arrested?
Yeah.
And
nobody was actually arrested for it.
Really? They got away with blowing a bomb up in Chicago.
Can you imagine being the guy that drove that car over there?
Yeah. Crazy.
All at C4 in the trunk?
Yeah, I can't even imagine that happening, in modern times. That's
I know.
insane.
And thank God we all just left there. And we're all bar hopping.
Oh, so they didn't actually even get anybody?
No, there was nobody in the building.
Wow.
Thank God.
Okay, so you go through this prospect with the Hells Angels for 14 months, and at the very end, Pat told you don't have what it takes.
Right.
How upsetting was that to give up, over a year of your life to be told, nah, you're not good enough?
Yeah, and all the hanging around I did too, So We're talking a matter of 4.5 years, and I think I just stood there for a minute, and I looked at him and I said, I'm not cutting it? And he goes, no, so we're going to send you down the road in good standings, but no contact. meaning nobody could talk to me. Which he was playing it smart because people would come up to me and go, hey, what happened, right? And he didn't want me saying what happened because there was nothing that happened. It was all, I don't know, he sent me a little text not too long ago, probably like 2 weeks ago. And I haven't talked to him in years. And he just said that I did a good job on this other show. And he says, hey, it's not great being a president or cut out to be what you think it is it? My hardest thing was misjudging you and sending you down the road, he says, So he didn't come right out and say he apologized, but basically he was. And he just said, good luck with your book and your family. And that was it.
Okay. So you essentially, don't get accepted into the Hells Angels.
Right.
And, what's interesting, you found this out later, was that Pat was making millions of dollars a year.
Millions.
During that time. From what? From drugs?
Yeah, solid drugs, yeah.
Was it mostly meth or?
Meth, cocaine, weed. I think he was doing all of it.
Were you involved in the drug dealing during this time?
No.
Because you were a prospect.
I was a prospect, and one of the guys told me that he asked Pat, hey, we going to get PeeWee going on this? So, let me get going on it and make some money. And Pat says, no, and I'll let him be one of the working guys. But on the other hand, I couldn't work because every time I got a job, you start doing a job. You get a job, a brand new job, and you work it. You're there a week. And he says, we're leaving Friday for Chicago. And I tell the employer, hey, I won't be here Friday. And they went, see ya.
Yeah. Okay, so when it didn't work out in Minnesota with the Hells Angels, you decided to go to San Francisco to be a prospect for the Hells Angels out there.
Right.
Okay. Why make that decision? You already went through the whole Hells Angel situation in one area. It didn't work out. You really wanted to be a Hells Angel that bad that you went into a different area pretty much?
I did. It was, everything I ever set my goals to, I achieved, like I wanted to be a state champion. I was, I played semi-pro football. And then I did the kickboxing stuff. I achieved at all of it. And I go to try to be a Hells Angel and I'm told, beat it. It kind of was a slap in my face. And then I thought, well, I know I was doing everything and it had to be like the members who were in the charter at that time that left afterwards told me personally that Pat was jealous of me or something. And I don't know why he was, but he was jealous of me and envious of me. So he sent me down the road.
Okay. So now you go to San Francisco, which is actually that was the second charter of the Hells Angels after San Bernardino, where it was founded.
Right.
So this is one of the oldest chapters. And this was where Sonny Barger was sort of based at?
He was in Oakland, right across the Bay Bridge.
Got it. Yeah, and I remember I read his book a long time ago.
Yeah.
So did you get to know Sonny Barger during this time?
Oh, I ran into him many, many times.
Got it. And was he considered essentially the leader of the international Hells Angels?
Well, everybody says that, but what it is Sonny, there's no national president for the Hells Angels. Like the other clubs all have national presidents, vice presidents, sergeant. They didn't want that in the Hells Angels. They felt like it was all like a big democracy thing that, everybody was individually, to their own opinion, their own thoughts. So what it was Sonny was, I'm going to say like a front man. He was out there and he's a guy in 1965 who said, hey, you know what? We got to sit down. We got to drop some rules in the club, man, because they're just running amok. And there was guys shooting dope all the time, shooting each other, having wars with each other, one charter against the other charter, but they're in the same club. It's crazy. And then he took the old death head patch that they had like on the airplane from the World War II guys, and he changed it to the one that they have now that's on their back, the bigger one. And they were calling it the larger Barger because he designed it, and he gave it rules. He gave the club rules like no shooting dope, no smoking it, but you could snort 10 pounds of it, you know, but you couldn't shoot it or smoke it and stuff like that. And I mean, it was serious where guys would just like take a cigarette, knock a little tobacco out and dip it in a little bit, you know, twirl up. And I seen people jump on a guy and 20-year members and tell him, you're out of here, man. You smoked it. But they wouldn't have cared if he grabbed a straw and sniffed a pound of it, you know. It was crazy.
Well, as a prospect, you had a situation where you had to transport a black guy that was beaten really badly because he had gotten two Hells Angels.
He was half black, half white guy, and he was in San Quentin. Mm-hmm. And he went up and said, hey, I'm a Hells Angel. I want to get my tattoos. And he told some guy in the prison who was doing the tattoos who should have checked it out before he said that. It was stupid. And he put one here on his chest, and he put one on his arm. And when he got out of prison, he went and had jewelry made. He had a big chain made with a death head, you know, on it. And he's walking around wearing this, and he's proud as can be. I mean, he didn't have a patch or anything, but I guess they got wind of it or somehow. And then I pulled up there in my van, and I walked in because I think I was getting like supplies for the clubhouse that day. You know, I go to a store and get all the soda and beer and all that stuff. And I pull up and the van was empty. And yeah, I walked into the warehouse where the guys were working out of, and I says, hey, what's up? And they says, hey, you get your van? I says, yeah. And he goes, here, and he hands me a big roll of visqueen and a roll of duct tape. And he goes, roll this out in your van, up the walls and everything. He said, tape it off. I didn't even ask why or what the hell. I just went out and I started rolling up. He says, pull around the side, blow your horn, we'll let you in. And I pulled around the side and let me in. And when I saw him, I thought he was dead because he was laying in this huge puddle of blood, you know, and he just laying there. And just the way his body was laying, it looked like he fell off a scaffold or something, you know. So I thought, oh, so we're going to throw this guy in here, you know. And I opened the door. When I opened up the door, he sat up. So when he sat up, I was like, oh, so he ain't dead, you know.
Right, he had missing teeth. His nose was sideways.
He was cut from here all the way over the top of his head. I mean, his head was peeled open, and the eyelid was cut. So, you know, it was hanging down like this, and the eyeball was like kind of hanging out, and his teeth were missing. His nose was broke. He got a hell of a beating.
Okay, because basically black people are not allowed to be Hells Angels?
They didn't have black people in the club. They thought it was like a racist thing. They did it because it was all to do with going to prison, you know, how they're segregated in the prison. There's no way you can walk into the prison, trust me, after me being there, now knowing, you know, it's harder when you've never been to prison like I wasn't before. Hearing it, you're like, well, is it really that bad? Yeah, it is that bad. I could not walk in there with a black guy and say, hey, you know, this is my brother. Hey, we're staying together. We'd either get killed by his, you know, black group or a white group. They ain't tolerating it. They're very, very segregated, and you don't go in their areas or anything. So how would that really work out? You know what I mean?
Okay, so it was a prison thing. It wasn't really a racist thing.
It was a prison thing. It wasn't a racist thing.
Right, because you can't be a black Hells Angel in prison because you'd be caught in the middle of racial riots, essentially. Okay, what happened to the guy that got beaten up really badly? We put him in a van, and he was sitting in a van like Indian style with his feet crossed, and they threw a towel over his head so he couldn't like see people. A white towel of all towels, right? Mm-hmm. So it's drooped over his head there, and I got in with a member. He's dead now. His name is Anthony. He got in the van with me, and he said, just drive over to this place, and we go over to this guy's house. And you pull up and you can drive down into the basement underneath the houses in Frisco. We drove in there and we took him out. There was a table. And I seen a guy with a tattoo gun there. And they go, yeah, we got to cover up this guy's tattoos. So they like just ripped his shirt off of him. And I seen the one on his chest and the one on his arm. And they're pretty big, good sized ones. And they said, we want these blacked out.
And he's laying on the table with a towel over his face. And then a Massachusetts guy was sitting like over to the side, and Anthony was standing there. Then there was me and the tattoo guy. And he started just, with black ink, just etching it out. And I don't know if you know, like when somebody's getting tattooed, a lot of times the ink builds up in the arm. They got to wipe to see what they're doing and stuff. Well, he goes, hey, I don't have it. He's looking around. I don't have anything, to wipe up. I got to see what I'm doing here. And the guy from Massachusetts looks around the crowd. Oh, here you go, man. Reaches off the shelf, grabs a bottle of Windex with ammonia, hands it to him. When he squirt that guy, you see the veins popping out of his neck.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty heavy duty, and they cleared it. And then the guy kept going on and on, Oh, man, my dad said to be the best. You want to be a Hell's Angel. You want to be the best. The reputation I got when I got these tattoos on the yard, everybody treated me better. And he's going on, and the guy from Massachusetts says, shut your mouth, man. You went about it the wrong way. And, they had the connections to get to that guy in the prison that did the tattoo. He got his ass kicked.
So the tattoo artist got beat up too.
Yeah, and they said something to the jeweler who made that death head for him too. Said that's a copyright. You had no right to make that.
All right.
And he basically kept talking, and the Massachusetts guy just got tired of it. Got up, reached in the top of the toolbox, grabbed the rubber mallet, hammer, just went pow, hit him square in the face. But I mean hard, because I was standing probably like maybe from me to you, and I got the blood splattered all over my face. I said, I hope he ain't got nothing.
Okay, so that logo is serious. You do not
Right.
wear that logo, tattoo that logo, get a jewelry piece of that logo unless you're 100% a member of the Hells Angels. Okay, and then you become an official member of the Hells Angels.
Right, in 2001.
Yeah. How did it feel to finally be a member?
It felt kind of like when I won the state championship. I knew I was the best, and it was like a high, almost like a personal high of your own. You're like, man, I did it, I made it, I'm finally in. And things started. You think things are going to like relax, but actually you want to do more stuff. Now that you're a member, you want to go travel. You want to go to other charters, you want to do all that stuff. Because before, you had to have permission to go anywhere or do anything.
Okay, so now you're officially a Hells Angel. And there was a situation that happened in Chicago between the Hells Angels and the Outlaws. I guess there was 96 Hells Angels and 60 Outlaws.
Oh, yeah, it was an Easy Rider show.
What happened there?
Well, it was crazy because I knew how many were there because I had 100 passes to give out. He gave them, and I was handing them to the guys. And when I handed them all out, all I had was 4 left in my hand. So that just tells you there's 96 guys I handed those passes out. Mm-hmm. But the weird part was, it's kind of weird to explain it to you. It's like they were at war with the Outlaws, but then they didn't want to like really have the confrontation with them. But you could cut the tension in the air with a knife. It was that thick. So in the early mornings when we were going in, it was so weird. There's probably 25 feet between us, that door and this door. And we were all at this door. They were all at that door, waiting for the doors to open. And I just made a suggestion. I said, why don't we just rush them right now in the hallway and there's no people in here, and that way no innocent bystanders get hurt. It's just us guys, straight up Braveheart shit, And this is what's so crazy about the club. I had a guy who, is still in the club, have been in there forever, and I totally respect him and still do. And he looked over at me and he said, PeeWee, you're from the West Coast. I had that California rock around, remember? You're from the West Coast. This is the East Coast. They're not going to appreciate you stirring up shit here, and we don't come over there and stir up some stuff with you and the Mongols and stuff, because it was a whole different realm. Now that I'm in California, it was like, what? Oh, no Outlaws? Oh, no, you guys are fighting the Mongols. I said, oh, okay. So, I had a second guess myself, and I was like, why, man? I can't understand what we're doing. And then when we got inside and everybody was doing their own thing, walking around, all the outlaws stayed together, one big group. There was probably 50, 60 of them. And they were one big group there. And then they came upstairs and they were basically standing there. And there's a little bridge, a walkover bridge to go to where the bar and all the liquor sales were. And naturally, we were all standing around there, pretty much taking that over. And they were standing there, and I know they were thinking about just walking through, and they didn't know if it was going to kick off. So they sent this support club of theirs. There was some kind of like veterans club, not Vietnam vets, some veterans something. I can't remember the name of them. But they come walking through, and they were walking through pretty cocky, like, you ain't going to do nothing. And then, boom, when they started getting thumped pretty hard. And then one guy, he come running by me, and I just grabbed him, I threw him to the ground, and I was just, boom, punch him, because that's what I do, So I'm punching him, and I can hear his gurgling sound, and I look back, and another brother he's not in the club anymore. He's in prison doing life for murder, and he was just sticking him. And man, as he was pulling it out, I could see all his intestines coming out, and I just got off of him, and I was like, oh, this guy's done, I didn't know if he was dead or alive, so I just jumped off him. But there was nothing in the papers or on the news about anybody dying, so he didn't die.
So you actually saw one of your group members pull out a guy's intestines in front of you?
Yeah, with the knife. It was serrage edge, the little teeth on top. When he pulled it out, it was just like pulling his inner guts out. So
you're on the West Coast in the San Francisco chapter, and then you got permission to start a Las Vegas charter?
Right. It was just so hard for me to make it there, I went down to the Union Hall and I said, hey, you got any truck driving jobs? There was nothing. So I was bouncing, and $25 cash an hour, yeah, that sounds like a lot of good money, but living in San Francisco, if you know anything about that, it's, California to live here is expensive as it is. So it was like being in New York. And I was making probably $700-800 a week, but my rent on a one-room apartment in the back of the clubhouse was $800. So I wasn't getting rich, and there was no jobs and anything like that. So I just basically asked the guys, "Hey man, why don't you let me start a charter in Las Vegas?" Because I already went down to that Union Hall and they had a job and everything lined up for me. So I says, I want to move on, and they says, "Well, why do you want to leave us?" I didn't want to leave San Francisco. Like you said, the history was there, and it was a real honor being there. And the guys were super cool. All the guys in San Francisco, I deeply enjoyed being with them and being a part of their crew. But I thought, man, I was gonna make the club bigger. Las Vegas is the playground for adults, in this country. So I figured, let's go there. So I had to get 6 members, that wanted to start a charter. And I found a couple from San Diego, one from Alaska, and I think one from Colorado, and all over. And when we all got to Vegas, I was still wearing my California rocker, and we got pulled over by the cops, they're like, "Oh, hell no, you guys ain't coming here." And it was just like the Hells Angels 69 movie where they took them out of town. But they told me, yeah, either we're going to kill you here or you're going to prison. And, all cocky. I'm like, well, whatever, man, do what you got to do. And they were pulling us over left and right, jacking with us. And that's a zero tolerance state.
Yeah.
If you got a marijuana seed in your pocket, you go to jail.
Yeah. Because of Las Vegas and all the money that's made there, they don't want any nonsense.
Right.
So much stuff is allowed.
Now they allow weed,
Yeah, now they allow weed. But yeah.
So they're going to really punish you on the other stuff.
Exactly. Okay, so now you're living in Vegas, and then there was a situation where your wife got shot at.
Right. The first clubhouse, when we were at a Las Vegas charter, they all said they wanted me to be president. So I was president, and I got us a van, a nice 15-passenger van. I took it over to a tire place, and I had new tires put on it and the wheels balanced. And when I went over there, my wife drove me over there, and she was in a Cadillac that I drive. So I told her, meet me back at the clubhouse. And I was right behind her, following her. But she made it through the light, and I got jammed up in the light. She turned the corner. Clubhouse was about 5 blocks up the road from there. So as soon as the light changed, I come around the corner, and people are all out there standing there, charter members of mine standing there with a drink in their hand. And I pull up, and I saw my wife standing there like this, holding her ears, and she was crying. And I got out and I says, what the F happened here, What's going on? And then I look and I see the bullet hole in the window, and I looked at her, make sure she was okay. And I said, where'd they go? And they said, they went this way in a white car. And I jumped in the van. I didn't have any weapons on me, but I would have used the van as a weapon, and I went down. But right at the end of our street's a T, so it's 50-50 if they went left or they went right. And I went driving around, I didn't see nothing. Nobody ever got caught for it. But naturally, I went back, the neighbors called the police across the street, and there were so many cops there. And then they found the bullet because it went through both of my windows. But I had that window tint on there, limousine window tint, because it was Vegas, where it's real black. That's why they couldn't see who was in that car.
Right. Well, she didn't get hit, but she had powder burn on her face.
Powder burn, and her hearing was gone for a while. But she hit that button and put my seat back for me. That put her behind the post, thank God.
Okay. So do you know who did that shooting?
Well, I was guessing it was the Mongols that did it. Yeah.
Okay.
Because the old lady down the road said that car sat there for 5 hours waiting.
Wow. Okay, so these situations are all happening. Your wife gets shot at. You're involved in all types of insane brawls. And at one point, your son actually wanted to join the Hells Angels himself. Now, how old was he at the time?
The first time he asked me, he was like 26, and he says, hey, I'm thinking about it. And I was like, no, this ain't for you. And the second time, I think he was right around 27, 28 or something. He asked me again. I said, no, I don't want you in the club, Brad. And he says, why not? And I said, because you're the only son I have, and I don't want to see him getting killed in a motorcycle accident or being shot because of all the crap I just told you that I went through, So him being my only boy I have, I just didn't want to involve him in that. And then I think it was a year after that he came and he was bitching, I'm going to do this, or I'll go someplace else. And I said, okay, Brad, you want to do this? I gave him to somebody else to sponsor, so I did not play any favoritism. He didn't walk in because he was my kid. Matter of fact, people made him do more because he was my kid, and I just stayed out of it. I just kept my mouth shut and let him do his thing. And he did a good job, and he was a better Hells Angel than I thought he'd be.
Okay, so now your son is officially a Hells Angel.
Right.
I mean, but as a dad, most, people who are affiliated in gangs that I talk to don't want their kids to do this.
That's true. I can see why.
Yeah. I mean, did you feel like at that point you kind of failed him as a father in a way? You couldn't stop him from kind of following your footsteps? Or was it like, no, I'm actually proud of him following my footsteps?
Yeah, that's like a double-edged sword right there. He asked me. Yeah. I was proud and I was ashamed of myself. The proud part was being when he got in the club, I was proud of him because he was a good Hells Angel. He really was. He got into it. He was there, for everything. Rode right next to me. And it was weird to tell you this, but growing up, he wasn't like a real, I taught him how to wrestle when he was a kid and stuff, but still him and I never had that real connection as a relationship. Mm-hmm. And it was funny that we bonded so close as father and son when we were both Hells Angels, Like him hugging me, I'm going to go back to the room, Dad, and give me a hug. That was stuff like I never saw, that he would do. And then when the shame part comes in is, at his wedding when we got in a fight, and he ended up going to prison, and
we'll talk about all that. Yep.
Okay,
so 2 of the guys in the Hells Angels had allegedly shot 5 outlaws. And this major raid happened after that?
Right. The Outlaws that got shot, that was in Custer Park.
Okay, because there was a whole situation where like 80 cops, SWAT dogs,
Right, that was in
helicopter.
Sturgis. Yeah, oh yeah, helicopters, dogs, everything.
Okay, so what exactly happened? So did the two guys and the Angels actually shoot these guys or no?
Right, one was from Canada. Well, they actually both were from Canada, but one was living in America in San Diego. He's dead now. He got murdered, and I don't even know if the other guy's still in the club, to be honest with you. But yeah, they ran into them guys at a convenience store somewhere in Custer Park, and they jumped out and they shot like 5 people, and then they got caught and they got put in jail. And I think it was 2 years before they came to trial, and I pretty much promoted the club to put some money together and send a bunch of people to go support them in this thing, and they beat it.
Right, they both beat the case. They actually used the same lawyer that Snoop Dogg used.
Yeah, they did.
Case.
Yeah, I think it was like $500,000 or something, but it could have been worse. I mean, I give gratitude to the Outlaws that were there that did get shot. They got on the stand and they said, "I didn't say anything. I don't know who shot me." So I mean, they were men that day. I respected them. I did. My hat was off to them.
Right, you're talking about David Kenner? Is that what the lawyer was?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, and I remember reading Sonny Barger's book, and I don't remember what situation it was, but he sort of explained how the one thing about the Hells Angels is that when they would get arrested and go to jail, nobody would say anything. That they all maintained this level of silence. Nobody cooperated. And that's what historically has been able to allow the Hells Angels to essentially beat a lot of these cases, where a lot of other groups would start to snitch and tell on each other. A lot of these Hells Angels would just stay silent and wait for things to work out. Is that accurate from your point of view?
That is accurate. Basically, they want you to do is when you get in there, you just say, "I just want to talk to my lawyer."
Yeah.
But other times, like I would always see, like on some of these this Facebook crap, like guys saying, "Oh, you can't talk to the cops. That's a club rule." Well, somebody's got to talk to them. We get pulled over on the side of the road.
Right.
If we all just sat there and never said a word, or nobody talked for the group, we'd be sitting there or be arrested. Somebody's got to talk. Somebody's got to be intelligent enough to talk. And then, like I told, when you just brought up the 80 cops that raided us in Sturgis, first thing everybody said, "PeeWee, talk to these guys." So I'm like, "Hey, what do you want?" "Well, it was about that shooting." I said, "What the hell? I don't know what people do when they leave here."
Yeah.
So somebody had to talk, and yeah, it was me.
Right. Well, you had said that the cops told you they looked at you as the Tony Soprano.
Yeah, that's what they told me. I told them I wasn't impressed by that, but yeah. So when my time came and they took me in there, I told them, "Hey, it was self-defense," and that's all I said, really. I said it was self-defense. I walked in there, guy pulled a knife on me, I defended myself. And when they asked me what was this guy doing, I put my hands up, I said, "Listen, I don't know what anybody was doing. I don't know what anybody did, but this guy right here, I was one looking out for me."
Okay, then there was the River Run riot.
Yeah, I was in there for that.
You weren't?
I was in jail in Sturgis.
Right. But that was considered a massive situation.
Yeah, that was pretty bad.
How big was the riot in terms of the number of people involved?
Oh, it was huge. From the stories I heard from the men that were there, it was huge. I mean, when you see the chaos just on the clippings they'll show on TV, the guns going off and people being stabbed, and I think there was a couple. I think, if I'm not mistaken, there was a couple of citizens hit too.
How many people died in this situation?
3. One Mongol died in there. The one that was doing most of the shooting, he got stabbed to death. And then I think 3 Hells Angels.
Right, here we go. Two Hells Angels died. 1 Mongol died. Tons of people injured.
Well, I know Festus died and Jay Bell died, and then yeah, you're right. It was two Hells Angels, and then it was the Mongol, and then there was another one that was shot, but he got out of there.
And was it just basically with the Hells Angels and Mongols, it's just on site as soon as you
That's
guys see
what
each
it's supposed
other?
to be, yeah.
I mean, was there ever a truce of any sort? Because, I mean, things like this are bad for business. I mean, you guys are both operating illegal, enterprises. Nobody wants a bunch of attention when a murder happens or a shooting happens. That just stops business and, causes problems on both sides. Was there ever a time when the two leaders came together and said, look, we're just going to stop. We're just going to have a ceasefire for a while? Or did that never happen?
No, that happens. They have those sit-downs and when it starts getting really bad. But it's like George Christie said in his words, it's not a criminal organization, which it's not, but it has criminals in it.
Yeah.
Because I didn't sell dope and stuff. You know what I mean? But there was guys who did, made money from it. Mm-hmm. But that sit-down stuff you're talking about, that was starting to happen right when I was ready to leave the club. I had this Hells Angel named Steve Towson, who I love dearly. He's passed on. He was trying to squash this thing. And he called me up and he said, PeeWee, I need you to come and sit in on this, man. Listen, we got to end all this killing, man. This is crazy. And he was talking with those guys. And when Steve, he got killed at a funeral for a Hells Angel that they were burying. He got killed by another Hells Angel.
Wow.
That's how crazy things were getting. But he was doing the negotiations, and I guess the Mongol they was negotiating with was working with him pretty good. He was a pretty cool guy, I guess, and he sent a message back saying, guy's gone. I guess negotiations are off. That was it, done.
Okay.
Just went right back to old school business.
So that was the closest there was ever a truce, and
right.
Ultimately the death of the Hells Angels guy.
But there was truce. There was truce too with the Outlaws too. They've had many of them. And I'll tell you something Sonny said to me. We're sitting in Sturgis one time, and we were sitting there, and I said, "Oh man, so I heard the truce with the Outlaws is off now. Now we're back on." Sonny looks at me and he goes, "I'm going to tell you something. Every time we have a truce with those guys, we're the ones that break it."
At least he's honest about it.
Yeah.
Okay. And you had talked about how law enforcement was always trying to kill you.
Yeah. It got to a point where, I try to I took this paperwork to an attorney, a very, very intelligent attorney in Las Vegas, the one that was heading the whole Laughlin case. His first name was David. And I took it to him and I said, "Hey, look, I just got this paperwork and it was sent to me. This federal agent that worked out of South Dakota hated me. Me and him would bump heads all the time. He told this other agent that they wanted to pull me over, make the pack go on its way, pull me over, and then they were going to do like a setup thing where they shot me and put a gun in my hand saying I pulled a gun out of my boot or something like that." And this guy sent me all this, and he had it notarized and everything.
Was this paperwork? How do you get paperwork on an assassination?
He wrote down everything that they said, and he said, "Hey, I took this in front of a grand jury." He goes, "I want you to read this." And the lawyer says, "Well, why the hell would he be doing this?" What happened was, I guess they had a rollover in a car, and this guy got paralyzed. So actually, he's not an agent anymore, right? He's paralyzed, and he's collecting. But he said he was hired to do this. I believe he did. But nothing ever came of it. My lawyer goes, "I think he's just angry because, he's paralyzed and he don't have a job anymore." I don't know if that was it or not. But other than that, yeah, they tried to assassinate me a couple of times out in front of my house. for my bike being parked on the sidewalk in the driveway. My rear tire was on the sidewalk. My front tire was on the driveway, and I walked up to open the garage, and he pulls up and jumps out of the car, and he says, first, when he pulled up, he said, "Get that piece of shit off the sidewalk." And I said, "I will." I said, "I'll have it off in 2 seconds." And I was already opening the door to the garage. And he jumps out of the car and he goes, "What'd you say to me?" Trying to make more of it than what I said. And I walk down to get on the bike to drive in, and he pulls the gun out and he points it at me. He says, No, walk over here to the car. So I walked over. I had my hands up like this. He made me put my hands up, and I seen that look in his eye, bud. When he chambered that shell in there, I see him look left, look right. He's looking around, making sure there ain't nobody looking. And he goes, "I'm going to put one right in your chest, big guy." I said, "Well, do it smiling, because my cameras up there are catching everything you're doing, and my kids are going to love the money." And when he looked up and he saw I had cameras on my house watching the whole thing, then he said, "Get up against the car." So the whole mood changed. But I'm telling you, I'm positive I could feel it in here. Yeah, he was going to blast me and say I'd probably try to attack him. He was about 5'3",
Yeah. Well, Sonny Barger, like we had talked about, was essentially the face of the Hells Angels for a long time, back to the 60s.
Right.
But at one point, he made a 911 call.
Right.
Over what?
Him and his ex-wife, Noelle, I guess they got in a fight or something, and I don't know if he threw her down on the ground or whatever. She said she couldn't move. I really don't know the particulars on it, but then he called 911 for an ambulance to come get her because she couldn't move. And then the operator on there asked him, because then I think she got up and she took off, I think. And when she was in her car, they asked him if she had any weapons, and he said, "Yeah, I think she's got a gun." They pulled her over, and she did have one, and they arrested her. And that's a big no-no. I mean, I know another guy, after I left the club, he was a great, great member. He's been in the club forever. You see his picture in the dictionary under Hells Angels. That's how much I believe he was the man. And they kicked him out for making a 911 call because his wife was having a seizure, and all he did was call an ambulance. And they threw him out of the club.
You can't call an ambulance over a medical emergency?
No,
you're supposed
some
to
of
just
the
let the
craziest
person
stuff.
die?
Bro, if you get hit by a car and you're laying in the road dying and you get the license number, you couldn't even tell the cops the license number or who did it or anything like that. It's some of the rules are set way back in the 60s. It got to be changed,
Yeah, no, I mean, I have a regular guest on my show, Tony Yayo, who's like a street guy. He's down at 50 Cent in G-Unit, and he was saying how his dad, I guess, was having a heart attack, and he just froze up because he couldn't bring himself to call 911. And luckily, there was another family member in the house that went and grabbed the phone, but he said he just didn't want to call 911, even over a medical emergency.
Right.
There's some of these things are so ingrained in you, like you don't call 911, you don't talk to the police on any level. And sometimes it's just nonsensical. It makes no logic whatsoever. I mean, you're not calling to report a crime. Your dad is dying.
Right, exactly.
And he's going to die unless you make this phone call, but yet you're hesitating. And it's just crazy.
And that's what happened with that guy. And, they came to get his wife, and she was dying. She was swallowing her tongue, and he was doing everything to stop it. And, man, they threw him out of the club, and they took everything he owned. And it's pretty sad because... when Sonny did it, really nothing really came about it, And that's when that came about, I was already in prison. When I guess they had a meeting or something about him calling 911, and I think they just swept it under the carpet.
Right. And, George Christie, who's been on my show before.
Right.
I guess there was a situation where Sonny Barger was given a photo of you and George Christie, and he ripped the photo in half?
No, it was a picture of him and George Christie.
Okay.
Yeah, a guy walked into the shop, Sonny's sitting there
next
to me. And he says, "Oh my God, I was always wondering when you were going to be here. I took this picture like in the 80s, it was like 1987. And it was Sonny and George, and they had their arm around each other like this, and they were standing below that Sturgis sign that's up on the hill. Mm-hmm. And it was like an 8x10. And the guy goes, "Here, man, I've been holding on to this for you. I want you to have it." And he handed it to him. And Sonny grabbed it, and he looked at it, and he went, he ripped it in half, and he tore up the section with George and threw it in the garbage. He goes, "Thanks," and walked away. I went around the corner, and I said, "Hey, Chief, man, that was bullshit what you just did, man." That guy's right now thinking, what the hell what are these guys? Mm-hmm. And that's perfect thing for the name of my book, a brotherhood thing. And, he got, "Oh, man, don't question what I do." And I'm questioning it because that was stupid. All he had to do was tell the guy, "Hey, thanks, I appreciate that." He could have went around the corner if he wanted to take a leak on it or tear it up or whatever he wanted to. But in front of the guy, it sends a message that, we're not really a brotherhood of guys, because now he's seen that George hates that. I mean, Sonny hates George,
What was the beef between Sonny Barger and George Christie?
I think it was, my opinion on it was that because Sonny's wife at that time, Zarena, she used to be with George first. Oh. And then George sent her off and 86'd her, and then Sonny dropped to 86 and married her.
It's always over a woman, isn't it?
Right.
When you look at most beef between men, if you dig deep enough,
isn't that crazy?
It's usually a woman at the bottom of that hole.
Yeah.
A lot of times, women would ride on the back of these bikes.
Right.
But you've seen 6 women killed in motorcycle accidents. And the last one was just horrific.
Yeah, it was. And it was funny because, like I told you, now I live in Arkansas. Just 2 weeks ago, before I came here, they had a girl that was inexperienced riding, and she hit a tree and was killed. And, the guys on the run said, "Man, she crossed over the center line and she crashed." I was like, why would you even let her ride like that, if she wasn't experienced? But the one you're talking about, is when we were coming back from San Francisco to Las Vegas, I told those guys, I said, "Hey, man, this road's, this is a rough ride, man. You guys really want to pack your old ladies? I've seen some bad shit, man." And I says, it's up to you guys. I had no authority to tell anybody what to do, so I just said, "Hey, it's up to you, but I wouldn't do it." So most of the guys listened, and they put their girls in the truck, was pulling a trailer because they had a bunch of supplies they took to the USA run that we had a run in San Francisco. And we pull into a Chevron station about 30 miles outside of Vegas. And one of the Massachusetts members, which he's not a member anymore now, his name is Kevin, he had his girl in the truck, and he came up to me and he says, "Hey, PeeWee, is it cool if I let Georgia ride on the back?" I said, "Bro, I'm not telling you can or can't. I just said it's just a good thing, for her safety. But we got 30 miles to go." I said, "It's up to you. You want to do it, it's on you." And he went over and told her, "Come on." And she put on one of those novelty hats, the ones that are, not DOT. I mean, it's just fiberglass, and she put that on. He had a full-faced DOT helmet on, and he was riding right behind me. There's about 16 of us in a pack, and I was riding next to this guy from Massachusetts. His name is Don. He's out of Club 2 now, and he's riding next to me, and it was just about dusk, where the sun is going down, and we were only about 10 miles from the gas station. And there, laying in the road, was one of those big, giant alligator belts from off a semi. But it was the whole tire, man. Just the whole belt itself laying on its side. And they just did a brand new shoulder on the left side where they put in drainage ditches and stuff like that. So it was all fresh gravel. And it was deep, thick, like 2 feet thick. I knew I'd go tumbling if I hit it. As soon as we saw the tire, Don yells, "Look out!" And we kind of part like that. It was in the middle of us. But you got to remember, there's a lane next to us and there's a semi, so we couldn't go under the semi. So Don went over as much as he could, and I cut over. It was more on my side when I hit it. I'm just telling you what the guys behind me said, because I wouldn't even know. When I hit that thing, it felt like I hit a brick, like a brick wall. That's how hard that thing was. I flew over it. It sheared my foot pegs off my bike, tore it right off the frame. So when I came down, naturally there was nothing for my feet on, right? So my feet hit the ground. 60 miles an hour, I went into a high-speed wobble. I figured, oh, I'm going down. I just glanced in my mirror. I see Kevin hit it with his girl on the back of the bike. I see his bike tumble head over, feet, boom, boom, boom. I could see it in my mirror. I went off into the stones like a runoff ramp for a truck, and my bike just went, just stopped right in the stones. I didn't even have to put the kickstand down. It was so deep. I shut the bike off. I ran back to the scene. Kevin was laying on the side, and he was like, his face was all, his helmet was like totally wrecked, right, from rolling around. Then I ran over to the bike, and it's weird to explain this to you because I told you I saw him tumbling, like bike, boom, boom, doing this. The bike was sitting like this, and she was on the bike, and the bike was just laying on the ground. Her leg was folded up like that, and she had her arms straight out, and she was looking straight up at like this. And I walked over, and I looked at her, and the whole top of her head was gone. Her brain was running out of her head on the asphalt, and the hot asphalt, being 114 degrees that day, it was just bubbling, and it was something I wouldn't want to ever see again. Helmet was in 3 pieces laying there, and then the prospect grabs the helmet and starts running away. I go, "Hey, where you going, man?" And he said, "Well, I'm going to get rid of the helmet. I'll throw it." I said, "Well, it's a helmet law. If she's going to get busted for a shit helmet, or he's going to get a ticket for having no helmet."
Yeah.
I go, "Throw the helmet back on the ground. Just leave it there."
Yeah.
And we shut traffic down. And I was going to tell you, when he hit that tire, it flew into the middle lane. Brand new pickup truck went over it, and it tore the oil pan off the pickup truck. So there was oil everywhere. And I mean, man, we had everything shut down.
Well, the president of the Hells Angels Minnesota chapter, who you originally prospected for, Pat Matter, in 2006, he actually snitched.
Yeah.
Against 40 other members.
Right.
And you were one of them.
Right.
What did he snitch on you for exactly?
Well, he just came right out and said that he sent me to do a bombing, which is a total lie. The guy who did the bombing thing, I don't even give a shit about saying it because his name was John. He did it. He's dead. He's been dead since 2009. He OD'd.
Which bombing was this?
He went in there thinking he was going to do like some big damage, and put a bomb on a tattoo parlor that he thought I don't think he even knew if the Outlaws owned it or not. And when it went off, it blew like a window-sized hole in the building. That was it. I mean, it was pathetic. Nothing to write home about,
Why am I hearing about so many bombs that are being used by these motorcycle gangs? Is this like one of the things that are unique?
Yeah, if you get the bomb making guys, the right, like a lot of these guys are old Navy SEALs and shit that are doing this stuff,
Crazy.
It is it is crazy, man.
So Pat Matter, he was dealing drugs, so he cooperated against 40 other members.
Right, that to get his sentence reduced.
Did he get his sentence reduced?
Yeah, it was 17 years. They knocked 7 off, so he still got 10.
Now, obviously, he's out of the Hells Angels for doing this.
Right.
So he did his 10 years. What happened to him afterwards?
He went right back to the house that he lived in when he left, and he's doing his thing.
So nobody ever...
No.
I mean, isn't there some sort of rules in the Hells Angels that if someone snitches on you, there's a level of revenge, or is that just a...
I think a lot of that... I think a lot of that's gone, either these new guys coming in, because all these old-timer guys that earn their bones in that club and stuff, they're sitting back going, come on, man. These youngsters better start doing something. And I don't think many of them want to go to prison for the rest of their life. So they sit back, you know, like when I said there was another guy that snitched with Pat, this guy named Richard, and he's a real piece of crap, and he did snitching too. And I says, oh, why haven't you guys done anything to him? And they're like, oh, they're followed by the feds 24/7. Man, nobody watches you 24/7.
Okay, then in 2010, your son is getting married.
Right.
And all hell breaks loose.
Right.
Describe what happened.
Well, we're standing in a chapel, and the wedding's over. And the guy says, hey, just the family stay in the chapel. We'll take a couple of family photos, and then you guys are out of here. So basically it was over, and all the other guys walked out the side door. And there was only, I was dressed up, and there was a couple of the other guys that were dressed up. I think maybe there was only 2 prospects that had their rockers on, and then I think 2 members wore their patches. That was it. And the rest were just people that we knew. And as we were standing there taking the photos, one of the prospects comes in from outside, and then this other guy named Samuel, who did most of all the ratting and all the stuff, and he wasn't in a club. He was just a friend of my son's that stood up in his wedding. I didn't even know the guy. And he walks up to me, and he goes, hey, PeeWee, there's Mongols here. And I looked at the prospect, and I go, now I'm looking at the prospect, not Samuel. I looked at the prospect, and I said, where? Because I'm thinking in my head they're driving by or whatever. And he said, no, they're outside, and then as Samuel goes, they're right in the lobby. And like right in the back of me, the door was to the lobby. And I was thinking, oh man, of all days, of all days, this has got to happen.
So did the Mongols go there on purpose?
No, they were getting married.
Oh, so it was just by chance that Hell's Angels and Mongols were getting married in the same location.
Roll of the dice.
Okay. And one of the Mongols, I guess, was a president.
Yeah. A guy's name was Zilla, like Godzilla.
Yeah.
And I remember he was in another club. He was in another club before that. Well, I think he was in the Vagos too. Yeah, and then he switched over to Mongols. But then he was in a club before the Vagos called Old Bastards. And Jeff, the guy who ran that, was a good friend of mine. And he told me, hey, Zilla always wanted to meet you. Well, he did. You know, but the crazy part about this was I got charged with coercion because this is what I said. I said, they go, what are we going to do, PeeWee? And I said, well, there's only one thing we can do. That's all I said. You know, and I put on my sunglasses. I walked out in the lobby. When I walked out into the lobby, of course, you know, I'm not going to sit here and say I was going to probably fight the guy anyway. But I was going to walk out there and say, oh, you know, say something to him. But before I could even get to him, he caught me out the corner of his eye, and man, he went right into his pocket. And I mean fast. So I'm thinking, knife, gun, I'm not waiting to see. And I just start pop, 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 drilling him. And then a big knife fell on the floor, a buck knife, and he was reaching for it, and I got him in a headlock. I said, you want the knife? Grab it. And I knocked his feet, well, you know, I wrapped my legs around his and tripped him down, you know. Start doing a little wrestling again, you know. Got him down to the ground, and then I just started hammering him.
You knocked out 2 of his teeth.
Yeah.
2 Mongols got stabbed.
Right. And I didn't even know about that until I saw it on the films like everybody else on TV did.
Right. Well, your son Brad knocked out one of the Mongols, who turned out to be an undercover cop.
Right.
Ended up having a brain injury when he hit his head on the ground.
Yeah, they said his brain was bleeding.
And all this was caught on camera.
But the crazy thing about that was Brad was walking out the door as he was walking in the door. And when he opened the door, even though I was fighting, I was just getting up off the floor at that time. I heard the guy say to Brad, where the fuck do you think you're going? And Brad just, pow, drill him. You know, so, I mean, he really was trying to stop him, you know. So Brad hit him one time and he went down and hit his head. But I say, hey, that all comes with undercover work, you know. That's part of the game.
Right, because, I mean, it happened in 2008, but then all the arrests came down in 2010.
10.
And there was, 13 counts of various charges from attempted murder to all types of other stuff.
Conspiracy, everything.
Right. And 3 members or affiliates actually ended up talking to the cops before the trial.
Right.
So now you have people cooperating against you.
Samuel, Mondo, and Josh. And they weren't in the club. All 3 of them were just people that were there at the wedding. But they all told the police everything that happened. So it was almost crazy that we tried to fight it because I didn't know until later, you know, in the paperwork, when I got all the paperwork, that those guys made those testaments, you know.
Well, and you felt that this was a setup by the police as a payback for the River Run riot?
I don't know if the police actually set it up, but I think they knew about it. And the reason why, I mean, you explained this one to me, is when I walked out of the chapel, 2 guys pulled up in a Corvette and they said, PeeWee, get in. I looked at them like, where? You know, Corvette's a 2-seater. I looked at them and I just kept walking. So as I walked, it was 4th Street. And 4th Street's a one-way going the opposite way I was walking. And JD comes flying down, who's dead now. He come flying down in his car with his wife in the back seat, and he pulls up and he says, get in a car, PeeWee, get in a car. And I grabbed the door handle. As I opened the door, here comes a Metro cop car. It was a woman cop. She pulls right in front of us, like nose to nose. So I didn't get in the car because I figured that was as far as we were going, right? So I held the door like this. I just looked right into her face, and she looked into mine. And all of a sudden, she just backs up, takes off down the side street. And I looked at him, he looked at me. I said, man, that's weird. And I got in the car, we did a U-turn and went the other way and split.
Okay, and was this situation essentially the end of your affiliation with the Hells Angels?
No, I could just see, I could see like, you know, it was coming down to where every time there was trouble, you know, if it had something to do with a club issue, like fighting with the Mongols or something, if you got caught selling drugs, you're on your own. Nobody's going to help you. And by right, they shouldn't. That's your free enterprise. You're not paying the club. You're the one making the money.
Yeah. So
this was a club function. And, you know, we were hearing, oh, you know, we ain't got the money to help you guys and the funding and stuff like that. I'm like, what? Guy wanted $120,000 just to represent me. And I was like, man, where am I going to get money like that? So even the club, where's the club going to get money? I mean, to put assessment on it would have been like crazy. So I seen like that coming. And then I had a guy in my charter that was a rat. It was my vice president, and he was working for Metro the whole time, set me up, and this ex-Metro cop told me that his job was to get me out of the club bad so nobody would talk to me and I could never come back. And he did a good job.
Well, you said in your book, the angels would tell you that I ratted.
Yeah, they were saying that when I was going to prison.
Okay, but did you cooperate against anybody?
No, I didn't say nobody's name. I never cooperated. Yeah, it's all my PSI papers. That's why I put it in the book.
Okay. So, at one point, you officially quit the club.
I did. I was in a room and I said, how many of you guys out of 12 guys here, how many of you guys think that, you know, I disrespected this club? Because I felt like I never did. I always held the club first, you know. We needed a clubhouse. They didn't have the money. I'm the guy who bought it. So I'm standing there and I said, is this how you guys feel? 7 guys raised their hand, yeah. 7 out of 12. And I looked over and I said, you guys really feel that way? You felt like I disrespected the club and I said something wrong? And they said, yeah. And I says, well, I said, if that's the way you feel, then I I don't belong here anymore, man. I guess, you don't believe in me. I don't belong here. So I unzipped my jacket and I laid it on the table. I said, I quit.
And you had been a member of the Hells Angels for how long at that point?
15.
15 years. But 15 years of violence and, fights.
Everything I had to do.
Everything. Putting your life on the line.
Many times.
For them to tell you that you're no longer a member.
Right, because I did what I said in the beginning to you when I talked to the cops. Well, you shouldn't have talked to them. You shouldn't have said nothing. But I'm not sitting here trying to make excuses for myself. I was trying to basically say, hey, it was just self-defense. I was doing what I had to do. And they said, well, we got it all on video. And then I said, well, then let's let the lawyers fight it out. I knew better to shut my mouth after that.
Right. You said you had tears in your eyes.
When I walked out of that room.
Yeah.
It was like a walk. It was like the longest walk I took.
Right. And you said that a year after you left, the Mongols actually walked to the front door of
my motorcycle shop in Sturgis.
Yeah.
That the club took.
Right.
Well, I shouldn't say the club. The club in general did not take my shop. There was individuals in the club that were partners of mine. They basically stole the building and never paid me for it.
Right. And you felt that the Mongols were able to basically walk in that shop because...
And they never did that in 19 years when I was there.
Because you were no longer there. They felt they were weak.
Right.
The Angels were weak without you being there anymore. Is the war with the Mongols still going on?
Oh yeah.
Today? So that never stopped.
Well, they're fighting them, and they're fighting with them, the Outlaws, the pagans, and God knows who else.
Well, you had said that, because there's Muslim organizations within the Hells Angels.
Now there is, yeah.
And I guess that the government is actually labeling them as terrorist organizations.
Right. I knew that, and I knew that would happen. So,
but is it, sorry to interrupt you,
okay.
But isn't technically any criminal gang considered a terrorist organization after 9/11?
No, not really. I mean, they could never really. Now, Canada said that the Angels were a criminal organization, and so did Germany, to where they were like making them, if they saw them wearing patches, rings, baseball caps, they would arrest them.
Wow.
So America hasn't really labeled them that yet, or they'd be cracking down on them. But I was one of the guys who always went to the world meetings, and went to all that stuff. And when I went down there, they I think they had the world meeting. That time it was in Germany, and they go over all the old rules and all the stuff, and they were arguing about all kinds of stuff. But anyway, I was losing my train of thought here.
We're talking about terrorist organizations.
So, getting into terrorist organizations, they just moved the charter into Turkey. So I want to go down and check it out. Beautiful, beautiful clubhouse. It was one of those places where you want to call MTV, come down, you open up the door, says, come on in, check out my crib.
Yeah.
All white marble floors, and then they had a maid house next to it with her husband. He cut the grass, cleaned everything, anything broken, he'd fix it. It was pretty cool. And I went down there, and I was sitting at the table with all these guys, and now they're Hells Angels, right? And they're from Turkey. And I said to them, are you guys Muslim? And they got real quiet, and they said, why? Does that make a difference, PeeWee? I said, yeah, I think it does. I think it makes a huge difference, man, because I said, I think with all this stuff going on from 9/11 and stuff, I said, I think they'll label us a terrorist organization now, because if we get a bunch of Muslims in here too and stuff. And a real nonchalant, he says, no, we're all Christians. And I looked at him, I went, oh, okay. I had to take him for his word.
Yeah. Okay. So then by 2014, you're 57 years old. You get sentenced to 2 to 5 years in state prison. This is the first time you're going to prison.
Right.
In your mid-50s.
Yeah, late 50s.
Yeah, late 50s. One count of felony battery with substantial bodily harm, coercion, and a gang enhancement for being the president of the chapter.
That I didn't want.
Right. Your son gets 15 months.
Yeah, 15 to 30, I think he got.
15 to 30. What was that like to go to prison for the first time at that age?
It was an experience, man. I mean, it's funny, all the times you can sit there on your couch watching Lock Up, or stuff like that. It's totally different when you walk out into that yard, and then they take you down, they put you in what they call a fish tank, but it was a true eye-opener. And thank God, I had a guy that did like 8 years prior, and he screwed up, came back, and he was my cellie, and he kind of like ran it all down for me. And, his nickname was Chachi. And it's so weird that you even bring him up, because just last night when I got to the hotel, he sends me a thing. I haven't talked to him in like over probably a couple of years, since he bought my book. And he wrote, "Hey, I love you, brother." So I said, "I love you back." But he's a cool guy, and he got out, he got clean. He was a big meth cooker. And he got out and he got clean, and I got him a job through the Teamsters, and he's doing a great job, and I'm proud of him.
Well, you get to prison for the first time, and it's a different set of politics in there.
Oh, yeah.
And since you're white, you get bunched in with all the white prisoners.
Exactly.
And you have, I guess that prison, you have the Aryan Warriors?
Warriors, yeah.
Right, so not the Aryan Brotherhood.
Right,
or the
Aryan Brotherhood kill those guys.
Okay, it's not the Aryan Nation. It's the Aryan Warriors, which is its own kind of
own thing, and that's just Las Vegas.
That's just Vegas.
Or Nevada, I'm sorry, Nevada.
Right, and you did not like these guys.
No, I mean, they were already under a RICO indictment, and they were snitching on themselves, and some of the stuff I saw them doing, like, just muscling these young white kids coming in there that are in there for stealing a car, and, they were trying to, like, muscle soups and commissary out of them, and if they didn't pay, they're going to get their ass kicked, and the gay stuff on the other hand, and it was just... After the Angels thing, I just was like, man, I just want to do my time and get out of here.
Right, because you're going in and you're no longer a Hell's Angel.
Right, I was out of the club.
But did you have tattoos and such?
I still had all the tattoos. They just got dates on them.
Aha.
They're dated.
Okay.
When I was in, when I was out.
Oh, okay, so they didn't have to burn them off or anything crazy like that?
Because I quit. So I left in good.
Aha, got it.
And then when they got, like 3 months later, started that, he snitched, he told on these guys, he did that, and then basically, one guy, I think it was from Vegas, because I split the charters, right? I split the Las Vegas charter, and I split off the Sin City. That's what I started, because I wanted a clean charter. I didn't care if they smoked weed or drank. I just didn't want any of the other shit there, because you lose everything, man. It's Vegas, bro. They take the house, they take it all. I mean... It's gone.
So you lost everything.
Right. You could have if they would have got caught with that. So I wouldn't allow it. Let the other guys do it. I didn't care.
Got it. And, you said you actually got along with the black prisoners because you showed up in Think Like a Man, too.
Right.
In the scene with Kevin Hart.
And I actually forgot about it because it came out that year I went to prison.
Right. We'll actually show a little picture of that from that little moment. But I remember, Kevin Hart was on the phone. And you're like in the background. It wasn't a speaking role, but you're actually there in the scene with him. Okay. Well, at one point, your son warned you that the Aryan Warriors wanted to kill you.
Right. That was the only time I seen him.
Okay.
Yeah, he was in the yard. I walked up to him. I said, "Hey, son," I gave him a hug, gave him a kiss on the cheek, and I said, "Hey, are you okay?" And it was like, it kind of bothered me because, he kept looking around like he wanted to get away from me as fast as he could. And he was like, "Hey, Dad, watch yourself, man. These guys are going to kill you." And I said, "Who's going to kill me?" And he was gone, like walking away.
Right. And a few days later, something happened.
Right. So, basically I asked one of those guys, "Hey, if you got a beef with me, man, what's your beef? What do you?" "Oh, no, we ain't got no beef with you." And I was sitting down, I was eating a bowl of soup. While I was eating it, they cracked me in the head with a rock. From the yard,
Okay, what was the beef over?
Yeah, I don't know. I heard rumors that the Angels paid them money to take me out. To me, I just took that as a rumor, but I think they basically were more like PO'd at me because they came and asked me, they read my paperwork and they said, hey, you're a warrior. Now, see, right there's everything I said, the cops. So if I was the snitch, like they were telling everybody I was, those guys would have read it in my paperwork and said, hey, you need to roll up and get out of here. But they came over and said, hey, you're a warrior, man. We got a place for you at the table. Man, dude, I just got the gang enhancement. I didn't need a RICO on me and the other stuff. So
Yeah.
I told them, man, I'm going to pass. And they totally took an attitude toward it.
Well, you later found out that your son Brad actually knew about the attack.
Yeah, they walked into his room.
And he didn't stop it.
Or I mean, try to stop her or do anything. It just, I mean, as a father, they would have came in the room and told me, hey, we're gonna kill your son. I would have got up and said, hey, well, what the hell, man? As soon as I got close, I would have been on second tier. I'd have been throwing him off the tier. But he just laid there. And the reason I could tell you this is because I heard it from one of the guys that was in that unit with him. After the 29 months I did, when I was getting out, I was up in the center where they check you out, do the last strip search, and then they belly chain you in, and they take you in the parole office in Las Vegas. We were probably about 30 miles outside of town, out in the desert. The place was called High Desert. So the guy walked up to me and he says, hey, you PeeWee? And I go, yeah. He says, yeah, they call me New York. I'm in here on a double homicide. I said, yeah. He goes, your kid's a piece of shit. And I said, hey, man, keep your comments to yourself. And he said, no, he is. Blood's thicker than water. Your kid didn't do anything. You're his dad. He should have stuck up for you. And I said, what are you talking about? And he goes, well, the guys came in the room. They told them, hey, we're gonna whack your dad. And he said, hey, do whatever you got to do. I just want to do my time and get out of here. And I mean, that broke my heart. It really did.
Yeah, you said you haven't spoken to him since 2015.
Well, he hasn't spoken to me. I mean, when I got out, I thought, matter of fact, the day he was leaving, I was sitting in the unit I was, we're all different units. And then they're all caged in. I was like in 7A and 7B, and there's 8A and 8B. And he was back there in 10 and 11. So as he was walking past me, pulling his cart, he was leaving. He was being released. I knew it. And he walked by and I yelled out, hey, good luck to your son. Be careful out there, He gave me the finger. I was like, what the hell? And every time he passed, I would yell out to him, I love you, son. And he just, like that.
Oh, so he doesn't want to talk to you.
Yeah, he didn't want to talk to me. He told my daughter that I wrecked his life.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Well, and then while you were in prison, your wife had warned you that she's going to divorce you.
And she did it.
And she did that after 38 years.
38 years we were married. Yeah, he said, you got to visit her. And I thought, all right. I got up there and this lady in a pantsuit says, you Charles Goldsmith? I said, yeah, you've been served. I couldn't believe it, man. I was like, wow. I was probably down as far as I could go, and it just took me down more.
Well, you spent 2014, 15, and 16 in prison, and then you finally get out.
I get out.
What was it like to walk out that prison?
It was great. It was just great to get in the van, and see something else except those walls or that yard. And then we drove back to Vegas, and then we went into the parole office, and I asked one of the guys there, so what happened? Again, I'm asking him for, a newbie. So I'm like, what do they do here? What's going on here? And he says, well, what they'll do is they're going to assign a parole agent to you, but sometimes it takes a day or two, so, you'll be like free to go do what you got to do. And then whoever your agent is, they're going to tell you what they expect of you. And I said, okay. So we're standing there. We have to fill out this little piece of paper with our name and our back numbers and all this stuff on there. And as soon as I did it, this lady walks up and goes, Goldsmith, which one's Goldsmith? And I go, me. And she goes, come with me. I walk with her. She goes, yeah, I'm Officer Carter. I said, okay. She goes, I'm your agent. Well, I got one immediately. She goes, here's the rules. You'll be in here in a couple of days for a urine specimen, and you're on a curfew 6 to 6, 6 at night till 6 in the morning. You cannot leave, and you're going to a halfway house. And I said, well, why do I have to go to a halfway house? Because my mom and sister live there, and Dale already filed for divorce on me, so I couldn't go back to my home. And Brad was still on parole, and he was at my daughter Brenda's house, so I couldn't go there. And I mean, who do you call up? Your best friend? Hey, I want to come stay at your house. I just got parole from prison. You don't want to do that because they're going to come over and check the houses and do their little, midnight raids, thinking you're doing something dirty. So I had to go to a halfway house, and it was bad. It was just so ghetto. I mean, you just sit there looking out the window, watching the rats run around the backyard. It was in a really bad neighborhood, and it was basically for AA members. I'm telling you, my whole life I hardly drank, right? Because my dad was a drunk, my stepdad was a drunk, my grandpa was a drunk. I just, the drinking never hit me, and I never was really big into drug scene. 45, I said, no more. I never did any more drugs of any kind. So I've been clean since I was 45 years old. I'm 67 now. So I just was like, man, I just can't, I can't do this anymore, Oh, what I was trying to tell you is I didn't drink, but they made me go to AA meetings. And if I didn't go to AA meetings, they were going to send me back to prison.
Right.
So I had to sit there, and I refused it. When it came to me, stand up. I said, no, I'm not going to. You don't want me to stand up and say, hey, my name's Charlie, I'm an alcoholic. I'm not. So I wasn't going to do it. So I just went like this, pass, man, just keep going. And they got pretty pissed off.
Well, you end up getting remarried.
Right. What was it, right? Yeah, in 2018 I did.
Yeah. And you end up moving into a 5-acre home in the Ozarks?
Yep, in the mountains.
And did your ex-wife actually move in with you and your current wife?
Right.
That's
I know, bro. You don't know the half of it. It's so crazy. People, they're like when you come up to them to introduce the ladies to them, it's their face is kind of like, what? Because it's unheard of, But what happened was she wasn't taking care of herself, and she was drinking heavily, maybe all the stuff, that I put her through, and she was drinking pretty heavy, and she wasn't eating. She was malnutrition, dehydrated. My daughter go over there a couple of times, finding her. She fell down, cracked her head open. She go over there, and she's passed out drunk, and no food in her house, and she was dying. I mean, she was so skinny. She was like skin and bones. Her arms were so like the veins. I could see every vein and tendon in her arm. And we saw her. We came to take my daughter out for a Christmas dinner, and Dale came with us. And I was hoping it wasn't going to be like, that's the first time she met Christina. And I was hoping there wasn't going to be any, but it wasn't. They got along very well and stuff. And her and Christina talked and stuff. And then we came the following year for Christmas again, and I took them out to eat again and I did invite my son. I told Brenda, tell Brad to come. I'll pay for the dinner for Christmas. Maybe we can talk and stuff. He denied. Yeah. So, I mean, I gave up on that. So Christina and Dale kind of hit it off. And then out of the wild blue, Christina took care of her dad from World War II vet. And, he did it, man. He was there for the big war, and he was 95 years old, and she took total full care of him till he died. And she's so used to it, she just looked at me and she says, we got to go to Vegas. Got to get Dale, she's going to die. And I said, get her and do what? She goes, get her and bring her here. Get her cleaned up. I said, I tried to get her cleaned up for like 30 years, man. You're not going to do it. And she says, no. She's going to better herself. I believe in her. We're going to do it. I thought it was beyond my better judgment to do this, and believe it or not, man, she came out and she just cold turkey stopped drinking. She had one little mishaps where she had a couple of beers, and Christine got upset, crying and stuff, and then Dale felt bad. But I got to give her an attaboy. I mean, it's been like almost a year now that she is clean and sober.
Right, and you retired from the Teamsters after.
Right, and she did too. So did Dale.
Aha. Do you know who killed Jimmy Hoffa? I remember I interviewed Michael Franzese, and who's a ex-mafia member, capo, and he wouldn't tell me who did it, but he said he's buried somewhere wet. That's what he said. Well, was there ever talk within the Teamsters over that whole situation?
They would make jokes like, where is he and stuff. And I made a joke out of it when my shop got raided, when the 80 cops hit the shop. Mm-hmm. And they go, we want to talk to you. And I said, why do you always talk to me? I get kind of pissed, why do you always talk to me? And that's when he said, well, you're the Tony Soprano of the Hells Angels. I said, no, I'm not that, man. And they said, hey, where's Kevin at? And he was a member that was on the 10 most wanted list for a murder. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know where he was. I did not know a clue where he was. So I stood there and I looked at him and I said, I don't know. They go, come on, PeeWee, you know. We know you know. And I said, don't. I said, well, I'll tell you what. I'll talk to you about it. You tell me what I want to know and I'll tell you what you want to know. But I really didn't know. So I was just playing him. So I said, where's Jimmy? And they looked at each other. And now these were 2 FBI, 1 marshal, and an ATF guy. They were in my front of my shop. And they looked at each other and they go, Jimmy? Jimmy who? I go, Jimmy Hoffa. They go, what do you give a shit about Jimmy Hoffa? I said, man, I've been a Teamster, man, like almost 30 years. I want to know where he's at. They go, we don't know where he's at. And I said, well, I don't know where Kevin's at either. And that's how we ended it.
And there we go.
That's how we ended it.
Well, PeeWee, man, I appreciate you coming in and sharing your story. Quite a journey. Quite a journey. And like the thing with the Hells Angels, definitely the most recognizable name when it comes to motorcycle clubs.
And I don't regret being one. I was proud to be one, you know what I mean? And it was an honor and a part of my life that I liked. I traveled the world, had a lot of doors open for me, like being bodyguards, seeing movie stars, like a lot of that stuff,
Yeah.
So it was good, and toward the end it was bad, but I don't hate them. I don't blame them. Everybody says, don't you blame them for going to prison? I just did what I had to do as a member,
Well, a lot of times that really comes with it. I remember I interviewed Freeway Ricky Ross, and he told me something that's always resonated. He ended up getting life in prison, which he ultimately ended up, reversing. But when he first got in, his drug connect, Blandone, ended up turning on him. And this is a guy who he made hundreds of millions of dollars with, and he had been to his home. And in the beginning, he was really angry. He's like, how could this guy do this to me after everything we've been through? And then a light bulb just went out, just went up over his head, where he realized that snitching is just part of illegal enterprise.
Right.
You can't get mad at something that happens almost every single time. And once he accepted that the snitching is just part of this, he stopped being angry. He learned how to read, and he ultimately was able to reverse his life sentence. But a lot of people always get mad at the snitching, not thinking that it's going to happen. There's really nobody who I've ever interviewed who has a criminal story that doesn't include snitching being part of their story.
Right.
Every time.
And I've had like 3 Hells Angel members, full patch members, wearing wires on me.
Wow.
To set me up for stuff, which going back to was like Pat Matter in that paperwork. I got the paperwork, what he said. He told him I was the Midwest distributor of methamphetamine. I didn't even mess around with it. I told you at 45 I stopped it. And I was older than when I got to Frisco. So you know that was all BS,
Yeah.
And I kept wondering why this one angel from Arizona, every time he saw me, trying to sell me a pound of meth. And I told him, listen, dude, I don't want it. And he was one of the guys involved in that murder of that woman where they're looking for Kevin. He got caught with meth, and he said, I'll cooperate. I'll tell you about a murder, but I want to walk free. And he did walk free.
Huh. So you actually wrote a book.
Yeah.
Can we see it here?
Here it is.
Brotherhood.
Greatest lie ever told.
Why the greatest lie ever told?
Because I could see the brotherhood wasn't there anymore. You know, like when guys leave the club, as soon as you leave, you're instantly nobody to them, you know, good or bad. And when I seen that, I was like, man, you know, you got to care about somebody, you know, to really call him brother. Like the guy I just told you about in the prison, you know, sends me out of the wild blue. Hey, I love you, PeeWee. That's cool, you know. And I was just in prison with him, but to me, he's a brother, you know, somebody who cares.
Well, listen, I appreciate you telling your story. And look, at 67 years old, you still look great.
Feeling good.
You know, you wrote a book. And man, congratulations on what you've been through, man. I wish you only the best.
Thank you.
That's what it
Appreciate
is.
it.
Peace.